Shavua Tov, Boker Tov, everyone. We are deep into the topic of Tzimtzum, contraction, the whole NACHLAOT, or the ways to understand what does Tzimtzum mean, what is Tzimtzum based on, where did that come from. And last week we spoke without reading the words of the Alter Rebbe. So this week we're going to start off with reading the words of the Alter Rebbe. This is page 3 out of 4. Page 3 out of 4, on the top, right at the top in the light. First paragraph, starting with the words in the light. And I want to ask Mordechai to please read for us the first paragraph, and once we'll see the letters of the Alter Rebbe, we will go more into the explanation of this, but let's see the words of the Alter Rebbe.
In the light of what has been said above, it is possible to understand the error of some scholars in their own eyes. May God forgive them who erred and misinterpreted in their study of the writings of the Ari of blessed memory, and understood the doctrine of Tzimtzum, which is mentioned therein literally, that the Holy One, blessed be He, removed Himself and His essence, God forbid, from this world and only guides from above with individual providence. All the created beings which are in the heavens above and on the earth below, now aside from the fact that it is altogether impossible to interpret the doctrine of Tzimtzum literally, for then it is a phenomenon of corporeality concerning the Holy One, blessed be He, who is set apart from them, i.e., phenomena of corporeality. Many myriads of separations ad infinitum that they did not speak wisely, since they are believers, the sons of believers, that the Holy One, blessed be He knows all the created beings in the lower world and exercises providence over them, and perforce His knowledge of them does not add plurality and innovation to Him, for He knows all by knowing Himself. Thus, as it were, His essence and being and His knowledge all are one.
Yes, Emon. Okay. So, sorry?
In the second rule, we say He knows all by knowing Himself.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go and elaborate on this topic of Tzimtzum Kipshutai or Tzimtzum like Kipshutai. We'll take the two far extreme opinions, the opinion of the Alter Rebbe and the opinion of the Gra, and we'll speak about the different proofs, the myths, questions that they had. We spoke last week about the Pashkevilim, the notes that they wrote on the streets about the Hasidim. How could they say Tzimtzum like Kipshutai? Where does all of this come from? So the idea is basically based on we can read it in the words of the Vilna Gaon, but just before that, the Vilna Gaon and the whole shita of the Gra, which by the way did not start in the times of the Gra, right after the Arizal writing about this idea of Tzimtzum Oirei Hagadol Al Hatzad, and I want to just read the words of the Arizal because it's very important. Terem shene'etzlu hane'etzalim v'nivru hanivroim, before anything was created, Haya or Elyon Pashut, a high, simple, pure light, Memale Kol HaMetzius, fulfilled all the Metziut, inside all of the Metziut, the existence. V'lo haya shum makom panei, there was no empty space. Ela kol haya memule min ha'or en sof Pashuto, everything was filled with the pure light of Hashem, the unlimited light of Hashem. V'uanikra or en sof, that is or en sof that we know of. The kasher ala birtzono hapashut, when Hashem wanted had a desire, livro ha'olamot u'latzil ha'netzlim, to create worlds, hine az tzimtzem et atzmo en sof, ve'az nish'ar makom panim, then Hashem contracted himself and left an empty space. And this is where the whole discussion comes in. What is this empty space that Hashem left? And what does it mean that he contracted himself? And here, the question is in two. First of all, question number one is the ma'or, the luminary itself, is that also concealed? Was that also contracted? I'm not talking about the light. The light is the extension of the luminaries, the rays of the sun. Was the light, which means Hashem's existence itself, not only his influence, his energy, the life that he produces, but him himself, Kavayachal, was he also contracted? So that's question number one. And question number two, what is this type of contraction? Is this a removal? Did he remove himself from that space? Or did he cover himself, concealed himself, and through that there's less of an amount of light? So these are two questions within this concept of Tzimtzum. And to make it more practical, I want to read the words of the Vilna Gaon, which is very important also to see. The Vilna Gaon says, he writes this to the community of Minsk. Minsk is today in Belarus, if I'm not mistaken. Minsk is in Belarus, is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to sound out. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So, the city of Minsk, the Gra writes to them a letter about the Hasidim, and the Gra writes like this: Belarus, today it's in Belarus. Yes, it used to be in Lithuania, it used to be in Poland. There was a whole thing with Minsk, but yeah. The Vilna Gaon writes, Yemalalu, the Hasidim say, Eile Elohecha Yisrael kol eitz v'chol even. In other words, if you don't say that Hashem contracted himself and removed himself from the world, you're saying that Hashem is the world itself. So they are saying that the trees and the stones are God. How could you possibly say such a thing? And this is a quotation from the prophets, from the Nevi'im, that the Nevi'im speak about Am Yisrael when they worship idols. They're saying, Eile Elohecha Yisrael. Not only the Nevi'im, but this is also about the golden calf. Vayayim, this is what the pasuk says, Eile Elohecha Yisrael, asher elucha meretz Mitzrayim. So that was the biggest problem that the Gra had with this idea of Tzimtzum lo kipshutai. You saying that Hashem rests, so to speak, within the table, within the avanim. So in that case, okay, so we have here two other copies. Page 3 out of 4. Please pass this to Mayor as well. Okay, so we are mamish in the highlight of Tzimtzum. Yes.
Have there been alternatives to something presented by the rabbis at different times?
An alternative, another option that Hashem could have used, you mean, as an alternative? It's a very good question. We don't, and the answer is, the real answer is that we don't suggest to Hashem ways to create the world. The reason that there was a Tzimtzum is because that's what Hashem told us, that was the way he created the world. He could have created it, and there are Sfarim that speak about it, there are books. There's a famous Hadran of the Rabbi on the Rambam, which is a sikha that the Rabbi gave completing the Rambam, Tafshin Mem Vav, and the Rabbi there goes into very deep ideas. One of the things that the Rabbi there speaks about is that Hashem could have created the world in other ways also, because he's unlimited. He didn't need to contract himself, but so that's why it's not a question like we're sitting together and trying to build a strategy for Hashem to create the world. This is the way that Hashem created the world, and this is the way that He told us He created the world, and we deal with that. So the Arizal, based on the Zohar, knew through a godly revelation the method that Hashem used to create the world. And yes, it also makes sense. There's also a logic to that as well. But we don't have other options for Hashem to create the world. That's the way that He created it. It's like using the 10 utterances. He created it in other ways. For sure, He has many options. But He said He created it in that way. And there's a message behind creating it in that way. That's the point. But talking about possibilities, unlimited possibilities, because He's unlimited. But this is the way that He chose to create the world. This is the way that He told us He created the world. And there's a message for us in this. So back to the Tzimtzum Kipshutai, like Kipshutai. So the Vilna Gaon says, and this seems like quite a valid question, that Umegalim Panim Batara Shalai Kalacha Bapasuk Baruch Devay Hashem Mekayim Bapasuk Va'ata Machayes Kulam. By the way, the Hasidim used to say, Va'ata Machayes Kulam, Hashem, you give life to everything in the world. So how could Hashem be contracted from the world if He gives life to every single thing, to every being, even to the smallest detail? The bad shepherds that made up this idea, and they're teaching it to people, and the students afterwards learn it from them. V'shem shamayim nischadel al yedehem. This is the words of the Vilna Gaon, and it's a very heavy topic because we're speaking about Hashem's existence. And that's why He uses a very strong language. And the Alter Rebbe also uses a strong language. The Alter Rebbe says Hashem should forgive those Chachamim that were mistaken learning the words of the Arizal and understood the idea of contraction, kipshutai, that it's literal. So again, going back to the question of contraction, so the question that leads, or the opinion of the Gra, is that you cannot say that Hashem is in a church. You cannot say that He's in a church, or any other base of Avodah Zarah, or any other impure place. How could you say that Hashem's there in such a bad place? He contracted Himself from there, and this means literally He's not there. Also, the luminary is not there, which means also Hashem Himself is not there, and also His light is not there as well.
But in the Chumash is written, even if you are wherever, I am there.
Okay, so I've got to see the exact quotation.
Things are prisons.
Sorry?
I think he was talking about prisons.
In prisons. Yeah.
In prisons. In the Holocaust also.
So that's another question. We spoke about it last week. It's a very good point. It's not only about places, but it's about times and events that happened to us. Was Hashem in the Holocaust?
Yes.
Yes. So if you say Tzimtzum Kipshutai, so perhaps you can say Hashem wasn't in every single detail over there. And that's where we see that it's a bit of a problem, because we know about Hashgacha Pratit, divine providence, that Hashgacha Pratit means that Hashem has everything in place. We don't understand His plans, but He's there. And sorry?
He's not in a church.
According to that, He's not in a church. He's not in a restroom. He's in a mosque, according to the Rambam, because the mosque is not Avodah Zarah, right?
So
and He's not in any Buddha's...
if I walked into a church, I would lose complete contact with the Shem.
So that's another good question. He's in you, but perhaps it's a different level of Hashgacha. That's why it's complicated, because it becomes a different level of Hashgacha. I want to bring another example just to show why it also makes sense, their opinion. And one of the things, so how would you understand that Hashem contracted Himself, removed Himself? He didn't just cover Himself. How does that work? I know how I can remove myself from a room. I just leave the room. I'm not there. I'm outside. I'm not there. When we speak about Hashem, is that the idea? He removed himself from the room. He's not physical in the first place. He does not take up space in the first place in order to remove himself from that space and to create an empty, open space.
We don't see it.
So, but what is it?
The contraction is making it small.
Well, what does it mean, make yourself smaller? I know how I could make myself smaller. I could hide under the desk, yes. But for him, how does he make himself smaller? That's the question.
I read yesterday about the Maral of Prague.
Yeah.
He's saying that there are two ways of communication. One horizontal and one vertical.
What is the difference?
The horizontal pertains to computer, to our physical life. And vertical pertains to our spiritual life. And there is an emsa. The emsa is the point
where both lines meet.
Or they meet, or you can see, or you cannot see them, but there are them. So this could be a way of interpreting the Tzimtzum.
Okay. I've got to see what he means. I don't fully understand it. It's like the light of Hashem that gives life to us physically and spiritually.
He starts from the point that when we read the Chumash or Gemara or whatever, we read what is written. And this pertains to our physical life.
Pshuto shenikra.
Then there is the Sod. And for him, the Sod is the real meaning.
Mm-hmm.
But the real meaning is not for everybody.
Right.
So the same idea.
So you're saying Tzimtzum is the same thing, that there's certain
Tzimtzum
people that
we don't see.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it's not there.
NACHLAOT.
The Tzimtzum is between the vertical and the horizontal.
Okay, that's an interesting way to explain it. I understand. I want to bring another example to the idea of Tzimtzum Kipshuto, is that when you write a letter, right? Let's say you summarize a word that you heard in the Parsha, or you're writing just a letter to a friend of yours, or a WhatsApp today you write it. There's the logic and the chokhmah, the intellect of what you are thinking and what you are writing, does that rest in the hand? Could you say that the hand is a smart hand? Because the hand, Einstein's hand, what about Einstein's hand that wrote relativity? He probably had a genius hand. Would you say such a thing? No, why not? The hand is writing the whole theory.
Just a mean.
What do you mean?
It's a mean. Through your hand, you put in.
Oh. And why not? Because the light of the seichel cannot shine in the hand. That is Tzimtzum Kipshutai. The light of Hashem cannot shine in a bathroom. Just, it doesn't fit. So even though Hashem creates it, and the question should be, well, wait a second, Hashem created it. Sure. Did he not create it? He created it. And when you are there, he doesn't know that you are there. So how do we say Tzimtzum Kipshuta? So this is a good example to see that there are certain things that, although technically the hand is writing all of these things, but it doesn't make it a smart hand because the light is not over there.
Was God in the Egel?
Yeah, fair. That's another good question.
Who created the Egel?
Hashem creates the possibility for such a thing to happen. For sure, he created the gold, everything there is part of Hashem's creation. But it's like the arm, the hand, and the seichel. It's not, he's there, but he's not there. Okay, the hand is writing the whole chokhmah, but the hand is not becoming smarter.
So the light is in what is written.
Sorry?
But the light is in what is written.
What do you mean?
You write something,
but it's,
so your hand is not
smarter.
But what you wrote.
Where's that? Is the paper smarter? The paper is also not smarter. Who's smarter? The person that reads it. And what does it mean that he reads it? It's not that his mouth is smarter. Now his mind is smarter. There's a development of the Rosh. Why? Because in the Rosh, it's a vessel for such a type of light. So what does it mean, Tzimtzum Kipshuto? It means that in Beis HaMikdash, where it's a place, or in higher worlds, let's speak about the higher worlds, would be easier. In Olam HaYetzirah, Olam HaBriah, Olam HaAtzilus, where all the angels are, that is a vessel for the light of Hashem. And you know what? Sometimes we are also vessels for the light of Hashem when we do a mitzvah, when we learn Torah. That is when Hashem says, "Ooh, here I feel at home." There's a connection. But when a person goes on his way, and I'm not only talking about Chataim Chas v'Shalom, but this is also the source to the idea of the separation of a Yid saying, "I'm a Yid in a synagogue, in shul, and outside I'm like any other person." And it used to be much more common that people, they would remove their kippah when they go out to the street. Today it's less, and not only for safety reasons. But then it was totally logical. There's Tzimtzum Kipshuta. Hashem rests not in my office, not in the restaurant. Hashem rests in the shul. When I learn in Beis Midrash, when I do a mitzvah, that's when Hashem rests in. And it's got to be that way. That's the logical way of the connection between the two. And again, it's like the Chochmah Taseichel being in the hand. No one's going to say that there's the Chochmah of the Seichel in the hand. So perhaps, by the way, this doesn't mean that the Tzimtzum, the contraction, was with the luminary itself. The luminary itself, we can say the luminary itself does give light to the hand. So the hand might not be smarter. The question is, what is smarter? Smarter is the light or the luminary? The luminary could be the being, the actual being. So maybe, but yeah, that's a question. That we can keep that in brackets. What are we talking about? The luminary or the light? But the Shita of the Vilna Gaon was that the luminary himself was also removed. Why? Because there is no seichel. There's not one bit of seichel in the hand, no matter what he writes. Okay? So it seems like Tzimtzum Kipshuta makes a lot of sense.
I went once to Rav Kaduri.
Yeah.
And there were many people, and he was sitting on a chair, and at the end he was giving personal brokers.
Yeah.
At the end, they sold the chair he was sitting.
Yeah.
Is there a light on the chair?
They sold it?
Excuse me?
They sold the chair?
Yes, $500.
It's a good price. That's another good question. It says about Vayetze, Parshas Vayetze, Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Harana. That Yaakov left Beersheva and went to Haran. So immediately Rashi says, why does the Torah speak about it in length? He left Haran and he left Beersheva and he went to Haran. Why? You say Vayelech lech lecha like Avraham, lech lecha me'artzecha. You're going on the way. So Rashi says that a tzaddik makes an impression on the place where he is. And when a tzaddik leaves the place where he is, so there is light, yeah? There is light. When a tzaddik leaves that place, you feel that there's less of a light over there. So what's...
Contrary to this,
okay,
on the Ohel,
right.
There is even more.
Nachon. So, and by the way, it's like Einstein being in a room. So does it make everyone in the room clever?
Yes.
So that's it. No, yes and no. No means that it's not going to change the way your mind works, but people will behave differently when he's in the room. So, and they'll try maybe develop their own seichel. So according to the Shita of Tzimtzum Kipshutai, so that is the idea of an impression of a tzaddik, and that's why again in the Shita of the Vilna Gaon, going to a tzaddik wasn't a big thing, because a tzaddik is nothing really special. It's like Einstein being in the room. He doesn't have an effect on your mind. He might have an effect on your behavior, on the way you got to respect it. You're not going to just shout out loud, the latest sport result or the latest politic event, whatever it is, because he's in the room. But it doesn't mean that you're going to become a smarter person. So that also applies to a tzaddik. So Tzimtzum Kipshuta means Hashem left the world, yes. But then from time to time, there is some kind of impression that he leaves through the tzaddikim, etc. So now
he left the world.
Yeah.
So this concept that he's recreating the world every day, he's doing that from the central office.
Yes, exactly. It's central office. Central office. Yeah. So he does create the world every single moment. And by the way, it's like, in the words of the Alter Rebbe, and this is why it was good that we read it, the Alter Rebbe says that even according to the Alter Rebbe elaborates on this opinion, according to the opinion of Tzimtzum Kipshuta, Hashem silek atzmus umhusar chas v'shalom elam hazeh, rak mashgiach milamayla, observing us from above, b'hashgacha pratit, with divine providence, which means he is, the Vilna Gaon's Shitta is not against divine providence. He does believe in divine providence, but just in a different way, that he's from above, and not really within the material part of the world. He doesn't have an office down here, he's got an office up there. He does take a good look, and he can. And the difference is, and this is what the Alter Rebbe says, and this is based on the Rambam, and this is the Shitta of Tzimtzum Loikib Pshutai, is that when it comes to the light of Hashem, the key to understanding why the light of Hashem works in a different way is that Ki lo machshavotai machshavotechem velo darchechem derachai. So yes, if you speak about a person writing the letter, his hand does not become smarter. But if you speak about the light of Hashem giving light to the world down here below, the world down here below becomes holy, becomes special, becomes connected to Hashem. And not only that, the Rambam says that everything that happens within Hashem himself. And this is based on a logical idea that when we learn another language, so before, or a language, let's say, that was developed, there were people that tried to create an international language. I forgot the name of the language. Esperanto. And that was like, does it exist? Do people use it today?
Very few.
It exists.
It exists.
You can find it online, and it's there.
Yeah, but it's not. So when we speak about languages in general, there is, let's say, me before I learned the language and after I learned the language. I was missing something before I learned the language. I did not know this specific language, whatever, Esperanto, any other language. And then at a certain point, I learned the language, I understood it. Can you say that about Hashem? Okay, they developed Esperanto not long ago. Did Hashem not know the language before, and now suddenly he knows it? How could he have known it if it wasn't created yet? So this is called Ribui. We are adding to Hashem something. He's not complete. The puzzle is not complete. And when they develop this language of Esperanto, so now Hashem knows this language as well. And it's not like discovering a new mineral. Discovering a new mineral is about discovering. It was there before, Hashem knew it, Hashem created it. But this language was not developed. People had to come up with these new words. So does that mean that Hashem now knows something new? And if he knew about it in the past, what does it mean that he knew about it in the past? But it wasn't developed. People did not make that up yet. And their answer is that everything that happens in the world happens within him. So it's not that he is a being and a separate being, and then there's added knowledge to who he is. Everything happens within Hashem himself. So the development is like Hashem's being becoming more developed, or a new type of a revelation, but it's all within Hashem himself. It's like, who discovered this language? Hashem discovered this language.
When?
So he didn't discover it. When people decided to talk in that way, to make that up. But it's Hashem basically, it's within Hashem himself. And that was La'asot, but all within his being, because that's the Asiyah. That's the Asiyah. And that was the problem again of the Gra and his Eidah, that they say, in other words, you're saying everything is Hashem. So if everything is Hashem, why can't you bow down to a tree? It's Hashem. It's all happening within Hashem. What's so wrong about a church? It's all part of it. And this is when we say that Tzimtzum like Kipshita, he's in the church, he creates the church. So here, we've got to make a big distinction. First of all, there is Tzimtzum. But the Tzimtzum is not in the Ma'or, not in the luminary. The luminary is there everywhere. And again, the proof is that we spoke about little children, little kids, that they believe in Hashem with a pure, full heart. Right? And that's the Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means the luminary. It's like the luminary being in the world. So you can't grasp it. It's there, but it's not there. And then there's the Or. And with the light of Hashem, there was a Tzimtzum. And the light of Hashem is reduced by the steps that we go in this world. There's more light of Hashem in Eretz Yisrael, which means it's not only the impression of Eretz, it's not because our forefathers stood here. No. That would be the Tzimtzum Kipshuta's opinion. It's about the fact that Hashem gives more light and there's more of a revealed level of godliness in this part of the world. And in Yerushalayim even more so, in a shul even more so, by Beis HaMikdash even more so. So that is Tzimtzum like Kipshuta. It's not literally that Hashem just covered himself in different layers. And if a person goes to Chutz La'aretz, so there's more of a covering. And that's why it says that people that live in Chutz La'aretz, they're Oivdei Avodah Zarah b'Tahara. They are worshipping idols in a pure way, not in a literal way, but in a pure way. Why? Because there's less of a light of Hashem. So you're not witnessing Hashem at the same level.
Could we say that?
So in other words, just to finish with the hand, so in other words, the hand is more smarter. That's the idea that godliness can fit into the world. You take an esrog, and you take an esrog, you shake the lid of an esrog, we're going to light Hanukkah, it's a heftzeh de kedusha, holy. You can't go to the rescue with that. How could it be? Because the light of Hashem exists more over there. How does it work? It doesn't make sense. You're right, it doesn't make sense. Hashem can be in the world with the luminary, and still it's not going to affect him. Hashem can project light, and this light will be reduced from madrega to madrega, tzilus pri tzira asiyah. And in the world of asiyah, there's different places. There are holy places and there are totally impure places. And the way that it works is from the different levels of mechitzot, of how would we call it? Curtains that Hashem basically places to reduce the level of light.
Isn't it related? There is difference from the perspective from God, and from us. So I think that Tzimtzum is the perspective of us.
And that's another point. That is why it says Ani Havai Eloi Shanisi. It's because and that's Yehuda Ilah and Yehuda Tata that we started off. Yehuda Ilah is the highest way of unifying Hashem in the world, and that's Hashem's perspective. Hashem sees the luminary even more than the child sees it. And the examples that we brought are from the Sha'ar HaRivash. Sha'ar HaRivash, I don't remember the exact name of the Rivash, but he wrote the Shalas and Chuvas. And he used to say, Hareini mitpalel leda'at zeh hatinok. I have in mind the same God that this little young boy has when he davens as well. Which means he wants the purity and he wants the feeling. He was sincere about his davening. He wanted the highest level, not going into the different madregas according to Kabbalah, this sphere, that sphere, this tzir of that tzir of. No. He wanted the luminary itself. Where would you find the luminary? By a young child, you ask him, where is Hashem? Hashem's there, Hashem. A young child doesn't know Chochmas. Hashem is here. Tell him Tzimtzum. He doesn't know that. Sorry? Ben Sheshet, Yishar Koch, Nachon. So he was one of the Gdolei Rishonim, I think, in Spain, if I'm not mistaken. 1300. So going back to the example of the Tinok, so I'll bring the example from the kindergarten I went to, that they didn't let me do any activities over there, but the mezuzot, yes. But when I walked into the kid, they immediately started, my father's a Kohen, I'm a Kohen, my grandfather's a Kohen. And it was so beautiful to see, because you see that, and the Ganenet said, the Yeladim Datiyim, when they do bar mitzvah, and he wants to do bar mitzvah himself. It's not the Yeladim Datiyim, it's a child. And you cannot come with chachmas to the child. He knows exactly what's true. So that's where you see that the Ma'or is Beit Galut. So yes, from Hashem's perspective, Hashem doesn't see a difference. Hashem sees his plan being carried out. But for us, Hashem was able to create us in a way that we feel like we have our own existence, and that's our perspective. That's Yichud HaTata'ah. That's the lower way of unifying Hashem. There is one thing that we still need to address. Maybe let's continue to the next paragraph. Chanoch, Tzimtzum Kipshuta. Would you like to read for us the next paragraph?
As it is stated.
And this is also the meaning. Is that where we're at?
As it is stated.
Paragraph before. Paragraph before. And this is stated, Tzimtzum, Tikkun 57, there is no place or space devoid of him, not in the upper world, nor the lower world, and in Raya Nehemna, on the portion of Pinchas, he grasps all and none can grasp him. He encompasses all worlds, and no one goes out of his domain. He fills the worlds, he binds and unites a kind to its kind, upper with lower, and there is no closeness in the four elements, only through the Holy One. Blessed be he, as he is within them. The meaning of none can grasp him is that there is no one, even amongst the spiritual intelligence, who can grasp with his intellect the essence of being of the Holy One, blessed be he, as it is written in Tikkunim, the hidden one. All the hidden, and no thought can grasp you at all. And even in the lower worlds, although he fills all worlds, he is not the soul of man within his body. Did you skip something? Which is grasped within the body, to the extent that it is affected and influenced by bodily changes and its pain, as from blows or cold or the heat of fire and the like. The Holy One, blessed be he, however, is not affected by the changes of the world, from summer to winter, from day to night, as it is written. Even the darkness is not obscure for you, and the night shines as the day, for he is not grasped within the worlds at all, even though he fills them.
Excuse me.
So
however, it's not affected by the change of this world. So what should we do? Korbanot, filot.
That's because of something else, because he wanted us. Retzono shel Hashem, the will of Hashem. That's the mitzvah, is the will of Hashem.
But he doesn't change if we do it.
No, he doesn't change. He doesn't change. No. He himself, he doesn't change.
Affected.
He's not affected.
He's affected. He gives us a prize or
it's fine. It's not affected by that. We are affected. We get the prize of the punishment. But for him, he stays on the same level. And again, why does he stay the same? Because it happens all within him. Everything is the existence of Hashem.
He was affected what happened before the Mavut. He says it.
Okay. Depends also what level we speak about, because part of the idea of Tzimtzum, there is a Tzimtzum, Hasidus does not say that there is no contraction at all. If there was no contraction at all, then the light of Hashem would be here in the world, but we wouldn't exist. He is affected to a certain extent. Certain level of him does get affected. Yeah. But in his essence, sorry, so a certain level, and that's the idea of contraction, that yes, there's less of a level of light, and malaso, not the same level.
There is a less level of light
in the world.
Objectively or subjectively?
It's a very good question. I would say that it's objectively.
Wow.
Even in Hashem's eyes, there's less of a level of light, but it doesn't make a difference to him. It's a good question. I think it's objectively. There's less of a level of light. That's Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum's not a joke.
If it's objectively,
yeah,
then Agra might be right.
Why?
Because there is less. Shoot up.
But there's less of a level of light. That's Admor can also. Tzimtzum ba'or. The light is reduced. And that's why there's a difference. There's a restroom. You're not allowed to go into a restroom with a talis, for example. Because there's less of a level of light.
Say that again.
That according to Hasidus, according to the Alter Rabbi, definitely there's less of a level of light compared to before creation. That's what the Arizal said, that Hashem had to contract himself. But what did he contract? The luminary was not contracted. That's A. And that's why little kids recognize Hashem immediately at a much pure level.
And that's why
little kids, they can recognize Hashem.
Because
the luminary still exists in the exact same way. And that is why Hashem guides us by being here in the world. But Hashem's luminary does not have an effect on us. It's like radio waves that we spoke about. Radio waves are here. They exist in the world. They're around us over here right now. Do you feel it? No. There's no real effect. So the luminary is the same thing. And the luminary does not cause us to become nullified. That's a question. Doesn't have the power. I've got to look it up why. But the luminary does not cause us to become nullified. The light could cause us to become nullified, because the light is already the hashpa'ah, the influence that Hashem has over us. And when it comes to the light, the contraction is with the light.
So there is a difference.
Okay, it's like the sun. So it's like comparing and saying the sun is here, literally here. Why would you not burn? So that's again a question. That's the luminary. It's here, but it does not affect us. And the light of the sun, that was contracted. So not removed. It's here, it still exists. And that's why when Yaakov left Beersheba, there was an impression that was missing, Yaakov's impression. Or like what you gave the example of Rav Kaduri sitting on that chair. So yes, there's a certain holiness to the chair now. There's more light over there. Or the Rebbe giving out the dollars. So if you keep the dollar, it's a sgula. There's something special about those dollars. There's more light over there. But nevertheless, it's reduced step by step.
So there is a difference between the luminaries and the light.
Yes, exactly.
So, but the light is part of Hashem.
Nachon, and it's connected directly to Hashem.
Isn't it a contradiction?
Right, and that's why there were several tzimtzumim. That's why it says, Himshich kav, Hashem withdrew a beam of light from the Or Sof, from that unlimited light, into the hollow space, and that light is the beginning of creation.
Shaniti.
So that's it. It's all within Hashem himself. This is all, it's like a power to give and a power to take away. You're not going to say that a person that decides to use the power of taking away something, he changed. No, it's all his powers. Hashem has an unlimited power and Hashem has a limited power. Hashem's also limited.
Again,
Hashem is also limited.
What would be an example of that?
Creating the worlds. There's a limitation to the world, to the table. This is a proof that Hashem is limited. Otherwise, something that is unlimited can never produce something limited. It's not the same line.
Ein Sof is not being limited.
Nachon. And Ein Sof is not limited. But then he has Yesh Lo Sof. He has a different power, like Chesed and Gevurah. Initially, by the way, Chesed and Gevurah, kindness and harshness, are offsprings of Or Ein Sof, the unlimited light, which is Chesed, which is all about giving. And then you have Gevurah, which is being strict according to the judgment. And that the source of that is Hashem's limited light, where Hashem says there's a limit. And that's why it says, by the way, tzedakah is only for poor people. Chesed, kindness, is also for rich people and also for poor people. You can do a chesed to a rich person. Tzedakah you're going to give him, he doesn't need tzedakah. But chesed, you can do a chesed to a rich person. You can help him with, bringing his parcels up, or helping him, whatever it is. Pouring him a cup of water, that's not a problem. You're going to give him money, it's not tzedakah. He doesn't need it. What does tzedakah mean? What is the source of the word tzedakah? Tzedek, justice. By the way, that's why it says that giving tzedakah is justice. It's nothing really simple. Chesed, on the other hand, chesed is also for ashirim, also for rich people. Why? Because chesed is an unlimited level of light. When we do chesed to someone, the point that it starts off is from a source of infinity that's within us. So even if someone's very, very wealthy, he has all the money in the world, he's not infinite yet. He's not unlimited. So that is why we can do chesed to someone else. And again, that's the idea that chesed, you can find many fields of chesed. Probably if you would look for the different ways of doing chesed, you can do bikur cholim, you can do, there are many ways to do chesed. Tzedakah, usually it's 1, 2, 3 ways of tzedakah. But chesed, it's unlimited.
Before creation, there was only chesed.
Where does it say that? Which level? Lav dafka, no. That's the idea that Hashem had koach bli gvul v'koach gvul. And if you take away the limited koach of Hashem, so you are making him limited. There's something that he cannot do. Hashem is so super, so powerful. He's so unlimited that he can also be limited. And like the famous question that we spoke about last week, can Hashem lift up a stone that he cannot? Can Hashem create a stone that he cannot lift up?
If he would.
Sorry?
If he would.
If he wants?
Yes.
So he could.
If he wants.
But Hashem's unlimited. So there's something that he cannot create. Yes, because he has also the power to be limited. There is one other thing that we've got to address, but I'm just not sure that we have enough time to address it. What's the time now?
5 minutes. 6 minutes.
6 minutes. We'll leave it Bezrat Hashem for next year, but just leave you with the question. So, according to Chassidut, and again, the Chassidut proves also based on the Psukim, Melo kol haaretz kvodo, ve'ata mechayeh kulam. So therefore, yes, the conclusion is, and also it's very abstract to say that there are places that Hashem does not exist there at all. It's hard to understand how to accept. But then if we take Chassidus, so we've got to answer and address what the Gra says, Ha'omrim la'etz aviata. If Hashem exists in every single place, so is this Hashem? It's all within Hashem. That's the Alter Rebbe. It's like the hand that writes, the Chachma is in the hand. Hashem is in the hand. Even though it doesn't fit, it's not meant for it. But Hashem is something above our understanding. Hashem does exist there. So, is this Hashem? Trees, are they Hashem? That's Avodah Zarah. And not only that, we do say that a Yid, you have a Chelek Elokam Imal Mamish. We have a godly soul within us. What is that type of a godly soul? What is a mitzvah? Tefillin, what is tefillin? So we still have that side to address, which means to go more into the details of the creation that Hashem created. We understand that the luminary itself is here. We understand that the light was contracted, but only was not removed, but was only covered. And now what we've got to understand is the separation between the different beings in the world. So what does it mean that this is within Hashem's existence? What does it mean that we have Chelek Elokim Al Mamash? We'll continue Bezrat Hashem next week. Shakar.